righty. Ready to go. Good afternoon and welcome to the April 11th. Okay. Any questions? I don't see any. That's good. Madam Clerk, can you call the vote, please? Okay.
Mr. Dawes?
In favor.
Mr. Hopkins?
In favor.
Mr. Kobus?
In favor.
Mr. Sontag? Mr. Sontag, are you there? We'll move along to Ms. Wilson.
In favor.
Ms. York?
In favor.
Councillor Nelson?
In favor.
We'll try one more time with Mr. Sontag. Councillor Findura?
In favor.
Motion passes unanimously.
You? Frank?
Frank didn't vote, and I didn't vote.
Frank didn't vote, neither did you?
I think we're going to vote in favor.
Yeah, I would vote in favor too.
What is that? There we go. All right.
Strategic partners, Dr. Ankit Kupar, who is an ER physician at RGH and director of the new Nest Health Center at the former YMCA, highlighted a number of issues and concerns of both resident doctors and nurses alike in a number of our conversations. This building will be a rental building that will be completed under the CMHC rental housing program that requires a percentage of the units to meet the CMHC threshold for affordability, along with accessibility and sustainability components. In order to qualify for the CMHC program, we will be focusing on a percentage of units towards 30% of income threshold, along with meeting elements of sustainability and accessibility. The target renters for the building will be a combination of care aides, nurses, resident doctors, and students attending the University of Regina, as well as urban professionals who may want to rent a rental home close to the core versus commuting from the suburban neighborhoods where most of the new rental housing stock has been built in the last few years. On a sustainability front, we will be installing a Shark Energy Piranha wastewater heat recovery in the building, which will utilize the gray and black water of the building and harnessing energy already generated for building heat and common area cooling through a radiant in-floor heating and cooling system. We will be looking to ensure the building is ready for future generations with solar-ready infrastructure along with EV charging infrastructure. That will be determined in its exact amount through the detailed design should this project be successful in approval. On accessibility, the building will utilize best practices from the Rick Hansen Foundation for Common Area and a number of the units meeting the requirements of being fully accessible. We are both excited at what this proposal represents to the City of Regina's densification goals in the urban core with the successful approval of this project, paving the way for more and varied urban development, reversing the reduction in core living numbers that has happened since the creation of the 10,000 person goal was put forth. Directly below in the package that was sent earlier is a couple photos of what the existing building looks like today. And I want to quickly address a couple of the resident comments in the feedback. Well, we looked at commercial space along 15th Avenue in an early iteration, proper and future-proof commercial space that can span a diverse range of uses and adapting retail habit changes. It was in our opinion that the site depth did not allow for properly designed commercial space with the requirements for parking as well. We fully agree with some of the comments that more neighborhood commercial space would be an asset, but with the land available, the long-term economic viability of commercial space in this building is not functional. As such, we've focused on the creation of activated residential space in those spring, summer, and early fall months. A number of the comments related to height, parkade, shadowing on the neighboring properties. The height of the building is in line with the neighborhood context of the Regina General Hospital to the west, along with a number of residential high-rises throughout the Heritage neighborhood. In order to meet the City of Regina's densification goals, projects like this are a requirement to achieve these goals and are commonplace in cities across Canada. We're available for any questions that the panel may have.
Perfect timing. Thank you for that. Any questions from the commission? Oh, I see, there we go, blinking. Okay. Mr. Borkowski, go ahead.
Through the chair, thank you for bringing this proposal forward. Maybe a couple of questions regarding your integration of the building into the neighborhood. You mentioned you're looking at the materiality of the exterior. How does it fit from a like elevation perspective, streetscape, volume into the neighborhood? I had a look at some Google Earth pictures, street views. It seems to me it is definitely a different building than what's around it.
Sure. So I think in terms of fitting in with the neighborhood context, the townhouse approach to the frontage along 15th Avenue is a big part of the overall strategy. We have that feeling of almost a brownstone where you're making it very activated at that pedestrian level. It does extend up 6 stories, but it's also stepped back in terms of the materiality to have that datum line around the 4th story of the building as well, to have it fit within the context. So it does step back, and it does change materiality at that point. And I think the materiality with the use of brick and the use of different design features with windows at that scale that we're looking at, it fits within the residential context of the existing neighborhood. Does that address your question?
Yeah, thank you very much. And maybe following up on the comment of the neighbor somewhere around it was here in B&B. The study of the sun study, or shading study, I noticed that it cuts off at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, which is kind of outside of typical backyard hours when people enjoy their yard space. Would you have, during the off hours of the day, 4 or 5, 6 o'clock, especially in the summertime, is kind of a shadow study of that available as well?
We don't currently have that available, but could produce it if that's requested.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Borkowski. Anyone from the commission? Any more questions to the delegation? No one on there? If not, I might have one or two. No one else wants to go? Mr. Archibald, you mentioned about accessibility or accessible. And you talked about, I'm not sure if you meant it by barrier-free suite, meaning is that it's 100% wheelchair accessible from kitchen to counters and all that. Is that something, is that what you were talking about? To providing that kind of rental suite in some way, or?
On some of the units, yes.
Would you have a number, like some, 1 or 2 or 3, or?
I don't have a specific number, but there's a percentage within the CMHC program that we were required to achieve above. Off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you what that number is, but there will be a number that are barrier-free.
Okay. Okay, so the next question, I know looking at your development here, you are completely on the ground, or you within your building. You didn't say anything about, and I didn't see, maybe I missed it, visitor parking. If you can give me a little bit more about visiting parking.
Yeah, I think the visitor parking would be addressed with the street level parking that is available. I think that is typical in a neighborhood like this. And I think the level of visitor parking that would be required for this building won't tax the streetscape in terms
Okay.
of what's available.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much. Anyone else? No. Thank you very much for presenting. You may return to the gallery. Okay, we're done with delegations. Can I get someone to move the recommendation? Anyone? Yes, it does? Okay. Then I'll go over to, I think, Ms. Bryden, can I get you to introduce the report or direct to whoever?
Thank you, through the chair. So the report before you is for discretionary use zoning bylaw amendment for 1222 15th Avenue, and Ms. Dawson is going to introduce the report.
Okay, I'll give you the microphone. Ms. Dawson, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are excited to present this application for a proposed new residential infill development at the corner of 15th and Toronto Street. The new apartment building will consist of 6 stories, 38 units, indoor parking, and rooftop patio amenity area as described by the applicant just previous. The proposed development supports key strategic priorities and official community plan objectives related to intensification and complete neighborhoods. Further, it will complement the neighborhood by adding additional dwelling units in close proximity to transit service, neighborhood amenities, employment hubs, such as the general hospital. The applications required to move this project forward include an amendment to the core area neighborhood plan, which is the OCP amendment, and the zoning bylaw amendment to accommodate a shift from low to high density. Further, a discretionary use is required as the proposed building exceeds the 11 meters, which is the threshold for a permitted use application. Public feedback received indicates general support for the project. However, there were submissions to indicate preference for a reduced height and, as you heard, some concerns for traffic. While the concerns are valid, administration is recommending approval for this application as the concerns were weighed with the positive attributes of the project as well as the project fulfilling broader city objectives, such as those mentioned above. Administration has also considered this shadow study and considered it to be acceptable. So with that, Mr. Chair, we are happy to answer any questions that the Commission may have.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Dawson? Okay, any questions to the administration on this report? Mr. Aston, go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair to the administration, are the shadow building of any height tends to have impacts in the winter, so we're less concerned about those. So yeah, we realize there are impacts, but we note that they are kind of limited in the summer months.
Thank you, Aston. Okay. Oh, got it here. Okay, Councilor Nelson, go ahead.
Thank you. I have a question. I'm going to direct this back to, we had approved a home that with barrels swinging, and we ended up not approving it when it went to council. Has there been any, I guess, studies? Has there been anything done through administration that this will make it past, if this gets past planning, to ensure this? What measures and what things has council put, or administration put in place to make sure that this will go forward as to conducting surveys with the residents and talking around, because this doesn't fit into the height of this development, and I'm worried that it's going to be red flagged and it's going to go, and it's not going to go well further ahead if administration hasn't done the due diligence. And I'm not sure if you have to do it at this level or if it has to go, continue past planning to do more work with the community in the area. I was just wondering what to the concerns in the neighborhood that this is going to bring up through the chair.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor.
The motion passes
8 to 1?
8 to 1.
8 to 1. Okay, it's passed 8 to 1. Thank you. We'll give a couple seconds. Last time I left, York waiting in the wings, didn't invite her back. This time I didn't forget about you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, we're going to move on to the next one. RPC 23-11, discretionary use application, 4600E Green Apple Drive. We have delegations. Andrew Howden, come on into the delegation table. Please introduce yourself for the record, organization you represent, if any, and where you reside. You'll have 5 minutes. Afterwards, there may be questions from the commission. I'll give you the microphone in the middle. Okay.
Hello,
go
my
ahead.
name is Andrew Howden. I've been living on Green Marsh Crescent for 9.5 years. I've been living there since before there was even a street. You guys put out a package to us. 49 out of 54 people opposed. So that's a pretty strong number of people that don't really agree with what's being proposed. I think the number one concern from the residents are, right now the lot is being broken into 2 phases. We don't know what phase 2 is, and neither do you. But my conclusion would be that it's going to be very high in density. The original plan, when everyone on our street moved in, was 147 units. Right now, they're proposing 92, and I'd also speculate that they're going to put in 2 more 55-unit buildings, which would put us close to 200, which is 50 more units than what was originally proposed. This is a major concern for myself, as my children have grown up on that street, and they're accustomed to playing street hockey. It's good to see there's lots of kids outside. They're not playing video games. They're getting fresh air. They're exercising. Being so close to the school, it's already very congested. And the parking before and after school is already very intense. The city, I don't know who approved the original development of allowing commercial crossings on a private crescent. I mean, the whole reason people look to buy houses on a bay or a crescent is for a little bit of privacy. It's not a through street. I didn't buy a house on Winnipeg Street where I know it's going to be really busy. So for as long as my kids have been alive, you know, it's been safe for the most part. There's only been local traffic only. Now we're going to have all these extra cars, 134 cars plus coming and going each morning, each night, and I just don't understand why they are not coming in off the major roadways, Chuka Boulevard and Green Apple Drive. There's a condo right across the street on Green Apple Drive. They have access off Green Apple Drive. Sterling Manor has 6 units, 8 units that come off Chuka Boulevard. And the Old Folks Care Home also has access off Chuka Boulevard. We understand that there's a good chance you guys are going to push this through regardless. The residents on Green Marsh Crescent are simply asking that we remove the commercial crossings on Green Marsh and install them on the major roadways. There's plenty of room south of the north of the building, the existing building, to put a commercial crossing in there. There is already independent sidewalk, which leaves the roadway. You can remove the boulevard and install a turning lane that would help mitigate traffic congestion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alden. Okay, any questions? Just hang on. There might be, no one's jumping on the buttons, but there might be a question. Just 1 second. Okay, Councilor Nelson, go ahead.
Hi, thank you for presenting today, and I really appreciate you being here and speaking for your community. I have a question.
Is now exiting.
Now what? Go ahead. I didn't hear, but go ahead.
Thank you. Can you help me understand why you feel that this is just going to get pushed through? I mean, we're here to listen to the residents, and we're here to listen to what you have to say. 49 out of 50 are opposed. That's a strong number. That brings a lot of confidence in myself as a counselor to know that this is not what you guys wanted. This is not what you signed up for when you bought in this neighborhood. And I'd just like to know, what is your feeling when because I felt actually really bad for you when you said that, you know, it's just going to get pushed through. What leads you to believe that it's just going to get pushed through? Has there been any conversations? Has there been anything that's happened in the past that I'm not aware of? Could you please maybe help me understand that a little bit through the chair?
Sheldon, go ahead.
But maybe I don't understand the whole process of what happened. I just saw the paperwork that came, and it just says Regina Planning Commission recommends that City Council approve. That's the very first word on the opening page. So I thought you guys already had, and now I was rebuttaling against you, but maybe I misunderstood.
Councilor Nelson?
Yes. So what will happen here is city planning will approve it or not approve it. Administration is asking us to approve it, so that's what's happening. But we actually will have the final say. So this will be a back and forth discussion. I understand when you moved there, like you said, this is what it was supposed to be. When did that plan change? Do you have any history of that, or it's something I can talk with administration about? Would you feel more comfortable with that?
Yeah, so the original land was bought in 2013 from a company in Calgary, from the best of my knowledge, and then it's been on hold for the 9 years that I've been there. You know, the original building was really nice from the outside, and it looked like it was gonna be like a nice little community. And another concern some of my neighbors have had is that building it looks the way the original design was, and then building number 2 is a smaller, so that's a different building, and then the third building is a large 55 unit building. So they're all kind of different. There's no like, I'm not sure what word I'm looking for, but it's going to be a mosaic of buildings, I guess, on that property.
Councilor Nelson?
Yeah, and that's fine. Thank you for being here, and I appreciate that, and I'll direct some more questions towards administration later. Thank you.
Just to, Ms. Todd, just to clarify, it's a recommendation. As you read it on top there, recommendation, right? Administration is recommending approval, comes to commission, goes to council. So it's just a recommendation. It isn't like it's just going to go. I mean, we'll see what happens here, then what happens at council. So, because administration has to recommend something, one way or the other. Okay. Anyone else? Any questions for delegation? Thank you, Mr. Holden. You made yourself clear. If you can return back to the gallery. Okay, and I believe we have Freya Marchuk. Could you just come to the delegation table, please? Introduce yourself for the record, the organization you represent, if any, and where you reside. You'll have 5 minutes. Afterwards, there may be questions from the commission.
Okay.
You have a microphone, go ahead.
My name is Freya Marchuk. I'm with Northridge Development Corporation, so we are the applicant to develop this site. We are proposing to develop this parcel of land in 2 parts, which is why we are having 2 phases. The first would have the existing building, which remains unfinished, and then 2 new buildings. One is a 55-unit apartment building, and then a smaller 10-unit townhouse. The decision to divide that site into 2 parcels is a business decision. It allows us to have more flexibility in determining the product type that we put on the north parcel, and just allows us to finish the site that is already there. specifically the existing building, which is our priority at this time. I don't really have more of a presentation, but I am here for questions if there are any.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Oh, there's questions. We got Ms. York, I think you are. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. We had a previous presentation, which you obviously heard. I'm just wondering, is this the first time you're hearing concerns about access being off of Green Marsh Crescent rather than one of the other existing more busy roads?
The first time we'd heard about it was after the consultation, and one of the city planners made us aware of it. But the reason it's off of Green Marsh is because that's what was there before. The previous project that was approved had the access points off of Green Marsh, and we are trying to utilize as much as we can of the previous site.
Through you, Mr. Chair, can I ask another question?
Oh, go ahead, yeah, please.
Is there a possibility of dialogue between the developer and the residents to discuss if there is an opportunity to perhaps change access, given the reasons that are stated today?
I'm sure there's an opportunity for dialogue. I'm just not sure that that would also meet with the city administration requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. York, that good?
It is, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Aston, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Partly you've answered that the curb cutout was there already on Green Marsh Crescent, but my question, I guess, through the chair, is did you consider alternative site layouts where it wasn't utilizing that existing one, where you put one in off of one of the other streets?
No, we didn't.
Okay. That's everything for me.
That's good?
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Any further questions for the delegation? I see none. Okay, thank you very much. You may return to the gallery and we'll look at the report. Okay. Can I get someone to move the recommendation? Ms. York? Ms. York, thank you. Ms. Brennan, can I ask you to introduce the report or delegate? Go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair, Ms. Alvanek is going to introduce this report today.
Okay. Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chairperson and members of the Planning Commission. The application before you is for a residential development consisting of 3 buildings and with 92 units total. The subject property is at 4600 East Green Apple Drive in the Greens on Gardner subdivision. The development requires a discretionary use approval as there is more than one residential building on the site and one of the buildings is greater than 11 meters in height. There is some history of this site that is worth noting. The property was previously approved for a residential development in 2016, construction of one of the buildings started but was never finished and the project was abandoned. However, this approval will finish the construction and will be incorporated into the development. Through the review of the development, we received a lot of response from the community. Key concerns are related to the proposed density, such as parking, traffic, and impacts to the neighborhood schools. Any development on the property will have impacts to the neighborhood by adding residents and their movements. However, it is important to recognize that this property has been identified as being appropriate for high-density development for a number of years, and the applicant is fulfilling that goal and also improving an abandoned site and building. Thank you, and administration is happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Mike. And we got questions. Ms. York, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Can you explain why the initial proposed intersection is the only option? Or is it the only option? Is it possible to perhaps have traffic onto Chuka Boulevard and Green Apple Drive rather than a residential crescent with a lot of houses?
Okay. Ms. Bryden, go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you for the question. So as you heard from the developer, the original plan for this development, which was established a number of years ago, had the access where they're proposing. We wouldn't consider an access off of Chuka, mainly because of the proximity to the school and the traffic that would be created there. However, I believe we would consider access off of Green Apple Drive, sorry, Green Apple Drive, if that was proposed. And I don't know if Mr. Mario has anything further to add.
Okay, go ahead.
Through the chair, I guess I would add that the original subdivision was designed with the access locations in mind, so that's not changing. It might be possible to have an access along Green Apple, but that's not what was being proposed. We're not in a position to dictate to the applicant consideration of a different location when the existing ones that are being proposed have been determined to be appropriate. The other thing I would note is there may be conflicts eventually as traffic in the neighborhood increases and we start to see queuing lengths backed up from the controlled intersection at Chuka Boulevard. So it may or may not work if we did further analysis on it. So I think I would leave it at that unless Mr. Gibney has anything to add to the response. He's nodding his head no.
Nope. We good? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions from the Commission to Administration? Hmm? Mr. Aston, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Through the chair, can you remind me of the number of units allowed in a residential high-rise zone, if there's a maximum or a target range per acre, I think?
Mr. Mario? Go ahead.
Through the chair, there's not a specific number as per the current zoning bylaw. It's a zone designed just generally for apartment-type units. I guess maybe just a little bit of history with the new zoning bylaw. It took a different approach for regulation of residential densities, kind of using more of a built form approach rather than a number of actual dwelling units. In this case, apartments, townhouses are the typical types of residential products that you will find in this zone. Going back before the new zoning bylaw took hold in 2019, the site was owned as R6, which was residential multiple housing, which was the zone that was typical where you would find apartment buildings. And at that time, we were regulating by number of dwelling units. We would expect to find in those types of zones densities above 50 units per hectare. So this is a typical density that you would have found in that zone as it was originally planned for. I think that's all I have to say. Good enough. Thank you.
Okay, you good? Okay, Mr. Das, go ahead.
Just following up with Ms. Yours and the other planning members' question about the access. Is there any possibility, like, I know that the developers didn't propose, or the existing plan was the access through the Greenmarsh Drive. Is there any possibility to start the dialogue between the neighbors and the developers so that they can reconsider to access through Green Apple Drive? through you, Mr. Chair. Go ahead.
Through the chair, anything is possible. We can certainly discuss more if that's feasible. It would require technical analysis. It's pretty clear that an access from the perspective of the residents in the area would be preferred. I would see it more as a technical exercise to determine whether or not it works from a technical perspective, given queuing lengths and safe turning movements and so forth. So we certainly could go through that exercise if that's the desire of the Planning Commission or City Council. And the other comment I would make is obviously it would require a complete redesign of the site, so it pretty much sets the developer back to the drawing board.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions for the administration? Okay, if not, then Madam Clerk, I will ask you to call the question. I'll get you the microphones.
Okay, Ms. York?
Opposed?
Mr. Aston?
In favor.
Mr. Boykowski?
In favor.
Mr. Dawes?
Opposed?
Mr. Hopkins?
In favor.
Mr. Kobus?
In favor.
Mr. Sontag?
In favor.
Ms. Wilson?
In favor.
Counselor Nelson?
Opposed.
Counselor Finjura?
In favor.
The motion passes 7-3.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Next item is called recess, no debate. We're going for 15 minutes. Legislative break. We'll be back at 5:45. next one. Okay, RPC 23-12, zoning amendment, discretionary use, 2340 Windsor Park Road. We have delegations, we have few. I would like to call upon Mr. Archie Ledgerwood, come to the delegation podium here, find a chair, I'll give you a microphone. And please introduce yourself for the record, the organization you represent, if any, and where you reside. You in the middle there? You'll have 5 minutes for your presentations afterwards, and maybe questions from the commission. Go ahead.
My name is Archie Ledgerwood, and I live at 211-2321 Windsor Park Road. I live directly across the street from the proposed developments. I'm here today speaking for 199 individuals who live directly across from or back onto the proposed development. These individuals represent the owners and residents of a total of 151 condo units out of a total of 167 condo units. This is the 92% endorsement and approval rate. Included in the above numbers is the condo building backing onto the development. That address is 3750 Houghton Road. There, 11 of the 12 condos facing north overlooking the development agree with the development. That is also a 92% approval rate of those people facing north. Overall in that building, there are 18 of 24 condos in agreement. That makes an overall approval rate of 75%. For the last condo on Willow Park Road to the south and directly across from another condo on Houghton Road, I represent 14 owners of 2351 Windsor Park Road who own 12 units out of 48 in the building. That's a 25% approval rate, but again, they are not directly across from the development, but to another condo. The addresses from which I have the signatures are 2311, 2321, 2331, and 2351 on Windsor Park Road, and 3750 Houghton Road. I suggest this level of endorsement approval may well be overwhelming for a development of this type, which is intensification and given its large size. Like most, we were all concerned with the development going into that 7.47 acre open area, concerned over high density, lack of on-site parking, and over a playground backing onto a vape shop, a cannabis store, Regina's largest liquor store, and the outdoor patio of a pub. The plan seemed to be addressing neither the needs of the tenants as well as not meeting the needs of the community, except for the requests of a very few. Yes, it complied with the city minimum requirements, but the minimum set by the city may not always be acceptable in every situation, just as something legal may not necessarily always be moral. Meetings and discussions were held with the developer and the city, and they've resulted in a development that I and another 198 signatures I represent are now prepared to endorse and approve. I would like to thank Ivana, especially Evan Lacuse, city officials Ben Mario and Deborah Bryden for their time and active listening to our ideas and our concerns. We also want to thank them for accepting ideas of compromise. We see here that every party compromised. Ivana in the number of units and increased parking. The city for its acceptance of a developer's masonry fence. For the owners and residents who would have preferred something less dense, a development composed of owned units, or nothing at all happened to the land, but in the end they were prepared to compromise on their individual ideals to something that is now acceptable. Unlike so many developments we have heard about and the difficulty that there has been over intensification, I see this development as an overall win for all parties. Frankly, it is something to be celebrated, in my opinion. I would ask that the City Planning Commission recommend to the City Council the approval of this development without any changes. The approval for this development is as outlined in the letter from the City of Regina dated March the 7th, 2023. It is for that specific plan that I and 198 others have signed their endorsement and support. We are willing to and open to accept and support Ivana as our new neighbors and their future tenants who will make this ideal location their home. Separate to this approval but connected with it is a request that perhaps the City of Regina could post the no parking signs within 2 meters of each of our 7 driveways on Windsor Park Road. Our seniors and each one of us living on Windsor Park should be able to exit our garages and driveways with clear and city-mandated, regulated sight lines. Why wait for a rash of accidents and require us to fight the city in the future when we know that this will be an ongoing issue? Our approval is not tied to that request, but we ask that you consider that point. To each of you, thank you for the opportunity to address you on this very important and significant issue.
Thank you very much. Right on time. Thank you. Okay, I'll turn around to any questions from the commission to the delegation. Okay, if there's no questions there, I have to just hang on, don't go. I've got a few. Solicitor, you mentioned that you had good discussion with the developer, the city, and come with some compromises. I just received the signed signature of support for the development. In the report, it states on the public consultation summary, 103 completely opposed. So my question to you is this is prior to this, you sending this to us? This was after the first initial public open house, am I correct?
The signatures that you've got there is the originals. The copy of that was scanned and sent to the city a number of days ago, and the question I had at that time to the city was how can you, many people opposed it and sent in opposals from your February letter, and they have now signed up positively on that sheet. So I don't know how many of your 102 opposals are now not opposals, but I did pose that question earlier to the city.
Okay, thank you for that. And then, Mr. You've mentioned about a fence on Windsor Park. You said a concrete?
It's a masonry developer's fence, which would be just like all of the other fences, or whatever you want to call them, that are in Windsor Park area. There's 13 kilometers of identical kind of walls that we're talking about, from Victoria to Arcola, from Prince of Wales to Woodland Grove, and with respect to both talking to the city and the developer, that's what they've said we would be receiving.
Okay. And then you, another question for you, Mr. Jewett, is, looks like on this development, the change, the increase in parking on the inside of the development and less buildings. Was this something that the community looked at and favorably on, meaning is less parking on the street, more on the internal?
The issue on this development, in our opinion, was the density of the project and the lack of on-site parking. Through discussions with the developer, they have changed their 246 units to 234, and parking has increased from 262 units to 338. That's a very large increase in parking, which will certainly take stress off Windsor Park Road, which after all is a collector road, which is very busy. So that's a very major issue. Parking is a big issue, and it's not only it's an issue ongoing into the future.
Okay. Okay, I think I'm good. Okay, thank you. Anyone else from the commission for questions delegation? Oh, looks like your submission, you explained yourself clearly. Thank you very much, sir. Okay, next in person we have Rose Donitz and Mr. Jim Friesen, please, from Willow Condo Corp. Would you come to the delegation, please, and I'll find out where you sit. I'll get you a microphone. Okay, you take in the middle. Mr. Friesen taking the outside, okay.
These chairs are
Okay,
heavy.
please introduce yourself for the record, who you, organization you represent, if any,
Okay.
and where you reside, and you'll have 5 minutes for your presentation, and afterwards, any questions from the commission. Let's start to, go
My
ahead.
name is Rose Dunitz, and I'm the vice chair of the Willows Condo Corp.
Jose Lebiota.
Is now joining.
Jose's just joining, so,
Okay.
go ahead.
Okay, so the Willows Condo Corp. is located 3702 Houghton Road East. We were presented originally with the plans, and the plans have since changed. So we do not oppose to the changes to the revised plan, but what we are opposed to is the parking spots now that are to be located on the southwest corner of the development. These parking spots are 12 feet from our building, where our bedrooms and living rooms are located, only 12 feet with car doors slamming and engines running outside our bedrooms, causing distress to our occupants. And then we're also concerned that the effect might have on the sale of our properties. So we did request that Havana change these parking spots to green space. They did not agree, but they did agree a change was required. They proposed a long-term pedal bicycle parking area the length of our building. Havana suggested that this amendment would be submitted along with the final plan for City Council approval if all parties agreed. And there's an amendment proposal that's attached that Ivana presented. Okay, the parking spots for this development exceed the minimum by 104 spots, so there'd be ample parking with the inclusion of Havana's bicycle parking area in the southwest corner. And they propose long-term bicycle storage. Havana and the City Planning and Community Development Department supported this amendment. The Windsor Park Road Condo Group do not approve this change. The reason we were verbally given by their spokesman was that he was too busy to pursue this change with the others involved. We respectfully request that this amendment to the parking spots indicated on Havana's drawing be included into the plan for City Council approval. It is our hope that the Windsor Park Condo Group, their influence will not override common sense and the recommendation of the developer and our city planning department. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Oh, you said that's it? Okay, I'll move. Any questions for the delegation from the commission? No, I have one. If you just repeat, you said you are not in favor of, I'm trying to look at the map, I missed it, what you said about you're not in favor of the change with the parking spots, with the bike?
Yes, when the revised plans came into effect, they were going to have, I think, 12 parking spots that would be right underneath our bedroom windows. And we felt with the number of increased parking spots that they do not need that extra 12. Plus, we also have a driveway coming in from Willow Park from our street that's also close to our building.
Okay, I see that, yeah. Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Mr. Aston?
Through the chair to the delegation, I live near this area, so I've driven by a lot, but I just don't have a perfect memory. Can you describe how close your building is to this site versus the other two that are further to the east? Are they set back just a bit further?
You want to answer that?
Sure. The setback on our building is 4 feet from the property line.
Okay.
The setback on the other two condos, I think, would be at least 25, 30 feet. You see, the thing is, like Havana came forth with a set of plans that most condos agreed with. We had 2 meetings hosted by the Houghton Road Group, which we invited the Windsor Park Group to attend, and they did. After the public meeting, the Windsor Park Group held meetings which we were purposely excluded from because they knew that we would be in conflict. And that's how this plan came to be. We had no input, none, in this plan. We still agree with it, but having cars parked 12 feet from our living room and bedroom windows is a bit much. We sought accommodation on that in Havana, and we had, I think, support from the city planning as well to do something about that. But the Windsor Park Group, apparently their spokesman was too busy to pursue change to talk to his people to make this change. That's the only reason that they gave us for not assisting us in asking for this change.
Think you good?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Wilson, go ahead.
Yeah, through you, the chair. Just reminding me of the street when I have driven down there. I think I remember there is parking spots on some sides of the building, like you're opposed to the one side facing this condo development, but there are surface level parking spots around the other sides of the building.
I'm not quite following you.
I guess I just wanted to confirm your condo building, is there parking spots around the building on other sides of the building, or is there no surface level parking?
To the chair, we have parking on the road, on Willow Road.
Yeah.
And there is some parking on Houghton Road. However, on the undeveloped property, which is supposed to be developed, there would be parking 12 feet from our building, as the plan shows. And I think the attachment that you may have, you can see that there's a sort of a blacked out area that Havana has blacked out and proposed that to be a long-term bicycle parking lot. And that would suit our purpose for keeping cars away from our bedrooms and living room windows.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further questions for the delegation? I see none. Thank you very much. You may return to the gallery.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, Mr. Labiota, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Please introduce yourself for the record, organization you represent, if any, and I'm going to say where you're calling from or where you reside, and then where you're calling from. You'll have 5 minutes for your presentation. Afterwards, there may be questions from the commission. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Jose Labiota. I'm here this evening representing the residents of 2341 Windsor Park Road. We've had numerous discussions and meetings with all of our neighbors, and somewhere in the last month, things sort of fell apart. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the Regina Planning Commission. Thank you for affording me the opportunity to address you this afternoon on the above captioned project. I will not reiterate the concerns raised in our March 9th letter to the Planning Department, but would like to expand on certain portions. I've attached a very preliminary sketch of what the appearance of the east-west orientations of the buildings could be. The unit yield as shown would be 224 units. The maximum yield with minor adjustments could be 240 units. All units would be oriented along a true east-west axis and should be solar ready. With the City of Regina adopting a net zero emissions policy, it would seem strange that both the city and developers are not pursuing every possibility to achieve these goals. An added advantage to the east-west orientation would be that only the sides of 5 buildings would be viewed from Windsor Park Road as well as Willow Road. The total building exposure would be limited to approximately 180 feet. The current plan would have a total exposure of 496 feet. As well, the existing plan calls for the rear of the buildings 20 through 24 to be exposed on Windsor Park Road with a very narrow rear yard. The actual measurement has been omitted from the plan, but appears to be in the order of 8 feet. In comparison, the setback from property line along Willow Road is 19 feet. The existing condos across from the proposed site are all set back between 20 and 25 feet. While the provision of a 6-foot-high fence will mute the effect of direct access to Windsor Park Road, it will not in any way buffer the view of 5 buildings covering 496 feet of vista, rising approximately 26 feet into the air. Only increased setback distance and heavy landscape buffering can achieve this goal. While all residents of the condos on Windsor Park Road are in favor of having development of the bare land site occur, we still have concerns about the impact of traffic on our heavily traveled road. The excavation of the basements of these units will require the removal of approximately 13,500 cubic yards of material. That will be in the order of 1,350 dump truck loads. This is for the basements only. We have yet to consider the excavation of the internal parking lots, the volume of concrete to be supplied, the loads of base course and asphalt. Proper construction sequencing will be required to minimize the effects on the existing residents. We suggest that an east to west sequence be maintained to ensure that virtually all traffic can be accommodated on Willow Road, a much less burden collector. A final point of concern about the proposed rezoning arises from the original subdivision and the creation of the commercially zoned parcel. The subdivision of land requires a dedication of 10% of the land area to be dedicated as municipal reserve if the intended zoning is residential. However, this requirement is decreased to 5% if the zoning is commercial or industrial. Has this extra 5% dedication of land been factored into the rezoning application? And if the City of Regina is receiving a cash in lieu dedication, will this amount be used and dedicated to the use of increased or enhancing the landscaping in our neighborhood? I'm going to add just one other thing that I didn't have in my presentation, and that is the concerns of the proximity of the previous delegation. With the east to west configuration that's shown, there is ample opportunity to sit there and have the parking lot aligned on the south property line, which would abut the north property of all the condos on Houghton. That could be flipped with the buildings, and there's ample room in their playground area to sit there and have 20 to 30 feet of buffering between the backs of the buildings, thus removing all the parking, and it could be sit there and swapped further north. We could discuss this later if need be. I'm very much in favor of this proposal and the proponent, and Ivana has been very successful in making changes and amendments, and we just feel that there's a few things that have been left out, and we don't want to rush into this because all of a sudden we're going to have 230 units there that we have to live with as neighbors for the rest of our lives. I hope you have had time to sit there and read my March 9th letter, and if you'd like, I will be available to sit there and answer any other questions. I thank you for your time and the opportunity to voice a few of our concerns. On behalf of the residents of 2341 Windsor Park Road, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Alvisa. I'll ask the commission. Question for the delegation. Okay, there is one. Just hang on. Councillor Nelson, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Just a quick question. If we sent this back to administration to address some of the concerns, would that be appropriate for your talking of the people in the community and from there, through the chair?
Mr. Lebioda?
I think that the administration could contact myself. I'll be back in Regina on Friday, so I'm available Monday. That's plenty of time to prepare and adjust anything before it goes to City Council.
Okay, thank you. I'll speak to administration about this. Thank you very much for your time and your presentation today. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Any further questions? Mr. Lebioda, I have one or two. You were mentioning about you're in favor of what's happening for the development here, but you have some concerns. But then you had some questions, you had some comments about if this goes forward on construction. You're talking about sequencing, going from east to west on construction. What do you mean by that? Like, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but how would that work? Would that then city would delegate that to the developer? How would you see it work?
It would come down to placing a restriction on the utilization of Windsor Park Road to access the site during construction. Having that many units being built, we already have enough bypass people that use Windsor Park Road. The administration has not fulfilled its obligation to the existing residents by ensuring that the residents from Chuka Drive East sit there and access Anaquad Road. They've had some of those roadways closed off, and rather than ensuring that a proper utilization of the entire city transportation corridor is utilized, these people have all been coming towards Windsor Park Road. Houghton Road, there's a lot of people that don't use Houghton and they go somewhere else because they feel it's dangerous already. The city traffic department feels that there has to be a warrant issued first to ensure that before four-way stop signs or before an intersection is signalized, that it has to warrant it. Yet when I deal with the Ministry of Highways on a job that we're doing right now, we're doing this 5 to 10 years before it's actually needed, simply because we want to ensure that our development of this subdivision will not impact the businesses as we're selling the lots. The city can take the same view. They always seem to sit there and think that we don't need it until there's enough traffic there. You only build Costco when you need it. Well, that isn't the case. Costco has been thinking of moving for years. It's the administration that has to sit there and learn to massage and deal with things. This infill project is wonderful to see it coming to fruition. All of the buildings on Windsor Park Road, we go up to the rooftop units and we have premature failure of our rooftop units because we can't clean the filters fast enough to sit there and keep the blowing dirt out of it. If we sit there and allow this site to be developed randomly and in any order without having proper fencing or proper silt barriers or having the houses that built along Windsor Park Road, we're going to get all that construction debris and dust flying into our houses for how long? Is this going to be a 6-month build, a 1-year build, 18 months, 2 years? As a city councilor, are you willing to sit there and have 240 people calling you daily when it's windy and the dirt is blowing into their open windows?
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Lebioda. That's good. Any further questions to the delegation from the commission? So, Lebioda, thank you very much for presenting, and you may now leave the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Jose Lebiota.
We have,
Is now exiting.
is exiting. Okay. Now we'll continue. In person, we have Evan Laskew and Brent Schoberg from Havana. Please come to the delegation table, please. And then please introduce yourself for the record, organization you represent, if any, and where you reside. You'll have 5 minutes for your presentation. Afterwards, there may be questions from the commission. I'll give you the microphone, just 1 second. Any one of you, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chair Findura and members of the Planning Commission. We're happy to be here from Havana today for the proposed development at 2340 Windsor Park Road. I'm Brent Schoberg, President, and with me is Evan Laskew, our VP of Planning. I'd highlight that Havana is a build-for-purpose developer. We focus on multifamily residential within Western Canada, and we're headquartered and our primary operations are here in Regina. Havana's demonstrated a strong record of growth by delivering attractive and affordable housing that meets the needs of both the broader community and local residents. We believe Havana exists to serve others in elevating and empowering communities for the benefit of everyone. And our belief and commitment to this principle has been demonstrated through an extensive pre-development process on this project, and we believe we've delivered a plan that engaged the community through extensive information sharing and meetings. We responded to the City of Regina's needs around parking, traffic, and neighborhood design. We've addressed the many diverse needs of area residents through multiple plan revisions and responding to the feedback provided. And we've addressed the needs of future residents in this neighborhood with attractive and affordable housing with a mixed use and fully developed neighborhood. I'll turn it to Mr. Laskew here to give you some of the details on the development.
My name's Evan Laskew with Havana. I live in Regina, Saskatchewan. Thank you, Councillor Findura and members of the Commission for having us today. The proposed development consists of 24 townhome-style buildings with 234 dwelling units and 338 parking stalls. The development supports the city's comprehensive housing strategy and the vibrant community strategic priority, while supporting the density targets outlined in the City of Regina's official community plan. Currently, and I believe you would be fairly privy to it, there's a shortage of land available for development in the Regina market. This application proposes development on existing land in a manner that is appropriate to the character of the neighborhood and in harmony with the existing commercial developments. We estimate the tax base of this development at full build-out to be around $450,000 per year. The land for the proposed development has been vacant since subdivision in 2004. Any attempt to develop this land has been unsuccessful. Havana is most directly aware of another proposed development on the site in 2016 of 4-story condominium type buildings in a similar character to the existing condominiums in the neighborhood. This application was abandoned due in part to significant negative feedback from the surrounding community. Today, Havana is proposing 2-story townhome buildings which are consistent with the residential character of the Windsor Park neighborhood and complementary to the commercial developments adjacent. The scale at which Havana proposes to develop the townhome buildings on the parcel provides for a gentle transition from residential to commercial development. The community engagement discretionary use and rezoning application process extended for a greater period of time than is typical in Regina, as there was public interest from surrounding citizens regarding the parcel. Havana participated heavily in a process of consultation and revision, and the city administration demonstrated great flexibility in accommodating and supporting this process. I will take many questions, I hope, surrounding this, as it definitely has been a good process, and I respect the administration greatly for their input on it. Further to this, the key issues identified by the residents in consultation sessions that led to adjustments to the site plan included on-site parking, traffic flow, green space, fencing and trees, building proximity, side and backyard offsets, water flow and drainage along the property line, density, using Windsor Park Road for parking, and the current site plan parking lot distance to the 3702 Houghton East condominium. Through the consultation and adaptive process for this proposed development, members of the community stepped forward to endorse the development. Over 190 residents of the adjacent developments endorsed the development proposal in front of you today. In addition to the endorsements, representatives of the buildings at 3850 Houghton Road have also provided written supported emails to the City Administration and Havana regarding the current plans. While significant effort was undertaken to address the many needs of this project, we believe the ongoing work to diligently engage, review, and adapt have allowed us to bring forward a development that the neighborhood can support and be proud of. We respectfully look for your concurrence with City Administration's recommendations to advance the 2340 Windsor Park Road development to bring more residents, affordable housing, and tax revenue to Regina and to the southeast Regina neighborhood. Mr. Schoberg and myself are available to answer any questions about the development you may have. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. All right. We've got questions. Mr. Burkowski, go ahead.
Through the chair, thank you for bringing this proposal forward. It appears you had like extensive engagement with the community, and the feedback is certainly very positive. The question for me would be, you're really asking to, let's say, downgrade the existing zoning for a lower like density form. Currently the MH would permit really a higher density development. Is this due to previous feedback or the history of the site, or just housing forms that are currently in demand?
The previous development that was proposed for the site was condominiums of similar character to the ones adjacent. Under the MH zoning, you may also be aware, with a single commercial building on the site, I would be perfectly able to put this development forward without any discretionary use or rezoning applications. Our view and the approach to take it to RL is to be consistent with similar developments that we're doing in Western Canada, and still providing a solid density. I mean, the density on this is close to 32 units an acre. That's 77 units per hectare. That would fall under the old bylaws high density targets prior to the 2019 adoption.
Good. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, then I guess my turn. Maybe I'll jar some questions or some discussion here. You went through quite a bit of a discussion with the residents and administration. I think one question was asked. I mean, why would you? The one question is, why would you do that? Like, I mean, you could have gone any which way you wanted to do. What was the purpose? I mean, I understand the consultation is very important. In your opinion, as a developer.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'll respond from the perspective that Avan in this case is not just the developer. We're also the owner on a long-range basis, and we expect to be a neighbor in this community to many, and we take that seriously, and with our projects, we certainly seek lots of feedback from our existing residents and other projects. We're very open to adapting to kind of meet the needs of the area. Obviously, there's limits and financial feasibility and those kinds of things, but it's part of our approach to work with the community, become part of the community where we have projects, because we expect to be there for a long time, and certainly want to be seen as a positive neighbor.
Okay, thank you. And the question was asked, I think one of the delegations said something about a solar and orientation and all that. You probably looked at that. What would it be? I mean, for rental units, I'm not gonna feed a question to answer to you, but looking at the development, why wouldn't you go the way one of the delegation would say, be ready for solar?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, as well. In terms of our approach and respect that other individuals and developers may have a different business model and approach, our focus tends to be on affordable housing. And so we don't stray too far from that. There's many things that could be done. We look at innovations. We look at sustainable options, but our primary focus is on delivering affordable housing. So we stick pretty close to that in the projects that we do, and that was the case here. So, you know, that's basically, we looked at various models, but this is pretty consistent with what we do, you know, across all of our other projects, and we try and stay pretty consistent to the purpose that we want to, the benefits that we deliver in the community through affordable housing.
Going to continue. I don't want to take up the, no one's blinking here. So, and again, another delegation mentioned about, let's say this goes forward, the construction of it. I think I asked, and the answer was, there should be, someone will mandate or someone will do, someone has to do something, how you start building. If you're going to go from the east going west and not exit, not occupying Windsor Park Road when you do construction. Now, from your point as a developer, as you've built more than once, what do you say to that? How would you mitigate that? How would you manage that to make sure that the neighborhood, and you know, and how long this is going to go on? Like another comment was made. Are we going to deal with this for a year or longer? How would you then make the neighborhood comfortable and residents around that still live there? How would you work with that on a construction basis?
Mr. Chair, I'll comment, and then Mr. Lasky may want to add to it. But as I mentioned earlier, we you know, take the approach to be a good neighbor where we can, because we expect to be there in the long run, and realize construction can be disruptive. It is for a certain period of time, and then it's done, and we have a great new amenity in the community. In our case, projects like this typically are 12 months or longer, and but I would suggest you know, some of the earthworks are very early on and short in duration, and you know, we stay attuned to the effect on the neighborhood, and try and sequence things where we can. At the same time, we look at it from the perspective of the quicker we can get done with construction and be complete and have people moving in, that's what everybody wants, and so we tend to focus our schedules to try and make sure that we can accomplish these things quickly, and then be left with a great community ad.
Yeah. To add to that, through the chair, the accesses for the site are along Willow. The east side, I would say no developer has any control of what's coming down that road. We've heard multiple comments from the various members of the condo associations indicating that the amount of concrete trucks and different heavy equipment that they see coming down Windsor Park, our primary access to the site would be from Willow Road, as that is where our commercial crossings lay. As far as the development, most of the issues that would be of concern would be in the forming the foundations and pouring, as well as the framing stages. When you have zoom boobs on site, we won't have cranes for the development, and the east side of the buildings could fairly easily be accessed for the exterior work through scaffolding. And that's something we do all the time, and it doesn't add significant time or cost to the siding works. So the east side is not much the concern. There's ample laydown space on the site due to the green space. It's a benefit of some of these older subdivision designs having more of a square layout as opposed to more of the curve and speed controlled layouts we see in modern subdivisions. So with all that excess area that we've been able to make into, say, playground areas, green spaces, we can focus on the east side while also working on some of the interior buildings and still have good logistics for site access and laydown. So working east to west generally, but also working in central buildings is something that we'll be doing. It will be multiple buildings being constructed at once to achieve as quick of a construction turnaround as is reasonably possible. And that ultimately should benefit the residents, though it will be a little bit louder during the daytime hours, although we will always abide by sound bylaws as far as construction is concerned.
Okay. Thank you. And there was a comment made, and I'm looking at the map. It was presented by the 3702 East Houghton Willow condo about a blackened area. I don't see it anywhere else in here. This was submitted.
So, through the chair, if I may, that was submitted to the administration. It was not included in the final report. there was a circulation to the 3702 East Houghton building, or Houghton East building, as after the open house. That's where we took a lot of our feedback from, citing the parking as a major concern. So we took a look at the plan. The original ask from the Houghton buildings, from the original consultation meetings, was to maintain a 40-foot setback from our property line, in addition to the 20-foot setback that exists on their properties, to give 60 feet to the back of any structure we were intending to build. We originally created a site plan with that, but it resulted in a 246 unit and 262 parking stall development. The open house, it was made abundantly clear, though there was some support from the Houghton buildings, it was made abundantly clear that the parking would not stand, so we made adjustments based on the feedback from the open house to be able to provide additional parking. So with that, those 8 parking stalls in the southwest corner, there was an issue identified by Mr. Friesen and the members of the 3702 Houghton East condominium that those parking stalls were going to be an issue. I made a suggestion after doing a little bit of brainstorming and submitted a plan that we quickly drafted that potentially we could put long-term bicycle parking in that area. After circulating that amongst the other members of the community through, I mean, there's 8 buildings that we're trying to make as happy as possible, it was deemed that that would not be acceptable, and there would potentially be a withdrawal of support, and it could create an issue. So looking to create the most positive effect for the most, I made the decision not to include the bicycle parking in the final submission to the administration. However, I made a suggestion that we would commit to placing visitor parking in this area directly north adjacent, where they have that lower setback respective to their neighbors, and I received acknowledgement that that would be sufficient. I have 2 emails to that effect indicating that that would be acceptable. Obviously, it's kind of a democratic thing. I don't want to play too far to one side or the other. I'm in a rock and a hard place as far as those 8 stalls are concerned. So with Planning Commission and Council's recommendations, we would certainly move in any direction, but knowing full well that with the political situation amongst 8 buildings, we have to make considerations there. So it has been respected, and that is why you do not see that piece, because it was circulated for discussion rather than inclusion into the final report.
Thank you very much. Right on. Okay, I'm done, mine. I'm just gonna swing around and see no buttons pushed. Okay, well, thank you very much for taking the time to present, and you may return to the gallery, and we will consider the report. Could I have someone to move the recommendation? Okay, Mr. Wojciechowski. Perfect. And Ms. Brighton, may I ask you to introduce or shift it over? Hang on a second. Go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair, Ms. Hem is going to introduce this report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson and members of the Planning Commission. This item of the agenda relates to a proposed 234-unit residential development consisting of townhouse-style buildings. The development requires approval of a zoning bylaw amendment and discretionary use. The proposed development supports official community plan and strategic priority objectives relating to intensification and housing diversity, and is deemed compatible with adjacent development and the location context. For these reasons, the recommendation is to approve these applications. We also note that staff have worked closely with the developer and the community to address and mitigate concerns that were brought up during the consultation process. The report provides a list of changes that the developer was able to incorporate into the project based on community feedback. We want to thank the community for their involvement in this file and for helping to shape the proposal before you. We also want to recognize the developer for being so amenable to the suggestions and for working through the design process with the community. Thank you for considering this report. The administration is available to address any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, are there any questions for the administration? There we go. Get us started. Mr. Austin, go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Chair. So through the chair to the administration, a couple of questions just about the site. Just an opinion maybe, but it's a large site to have just one entry exit location, 7.5 acres. Was there any concern from internal reviewers, and I'm thinking of the fire department, in any regard to that?
Brian, who's going to go to? Okay. Ms. Dustin, go ahead.
Thank you, through you, the chair. We refer all applications to our emergency services fire department. And there's actually 2 accesses. There's one on the north and then one on the south as well. You'll see in your site plan, which allows for internal circulation and entry-exit.
I guess to clarify, I interpreted the one on the north as not being an access because it's drawn a little differently, but just to clarify, that is both our accesses
Yes.
to the administration? Okay.
Are we going to?
Yes.
The answer is that yes, the 2 exits?
Yes, there's 2 exits.
Okay.
Okay, that's different than I interpreted, so thank you for that. I think that's all for now. Thanks.
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else? Questions, administration? Okay. Ms. York, I think you're up next.
Okay, thank you. Through the chair, I don't have a question, I just have a comment. I think it's really good to hear that consultation and collaboration with the community, the developer, and then the city offering advice and expertise works. It sounds like this project turned itself around significantly. Not that there are still some, I mean, there are still some issues, but that will go to city council. They get all the materials that we get. But I'd like to commend administration as well as the developer for listening and meeting frequently. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. York. What do we have here? Go ahead.
Through the chair, my question is for administration. So throughout the presentations that we received this evening, there seemed to be a lot of concerns both on the parking side as well as on the traffic generation side. And we saw the ratio of parking stalls per unit go from 1.08 to 1.44. And I was wondering what analysis had been done on the traffic generation that will create within the neighborhood and sort of where the balance is at on those things. Thank you.
Brian, who's that going to go to? Mr. Mario, is it you? Okay, go ahead.
Through the chair, I'll begin my response, but I'll ask Mr. Gibney to kind of fill in with some details. So a development of this size and scale does require a traffic impact assessment. So the developer did submit that with a study like that. We look at the traffic generation numbers and impacts to nearby intersections to determine whether or not there is significant impact required to upgrade signals or to change certain aspects of the site layout or accesses or anything like that. So with that, I'll turn it over to Justin Gibney, and he can provide some detail about some of the impacts that were discovered through that study.
Through the chair, so a traffic impact assessment was completed. General conclusion of that study was that there's minor impacts to the surrounding network. So just for an example, there on Windsor Park Road, I'll just use that as an example, there was only a 2.3% increase in traffic. In terms of real numbers, what that means, that's roughly an additional 16 vehicles per hour that you're going to see in addition to what's there right now. So generally speaking, the assessment was done. The assessment was just recently approved by city administration, And generally speaking, the traffic impact is fairly minor.
Mr. Cobus, we're good? Okay. Anyone else? Any further questions to the administration? Seems I don't want to go home, so I want to stay here. I've got a question to the administration. As the comment made by the senior engineer about traffic, as the area builds out, would there be a need to look at the Prince of Wales and Houghton and Windsor Park? Because right now, there's no stop sign. Well, there's nothing to stop the traffic on Prince of Wales and Houghton, and there's a four-way stop on Houghton and Windsor Park Road. As we're going forward, as you're growing, is there going to be a study or need for a light, or how is the administration going to manage the growth in the area? Who's going to go? Ms. Dawson? Okay, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think it's a good question, maybe not relevant for the application itself, because we did the assessment based on the impacts of this particular development on the systems, right? And so as we move forward, if there's more development in the area that would, I guess, require upgrades to our transportation systems, we would assess it at those times of development and during those assessments. I'm sure that our traffic operations team would monitor ongoing issues if there came to be issues in the future just due to traffic, but it wouldn't necessarily be as a result of this application.
So what I'm hearing is that administration is comfortable with the assessment of the traffic, the movements now as we speak. Going to the future, you have a plan. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to do one more swing. And if not, oh, gee, I forget to look at the screen. Councillor Nelson, go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor Pandera. Now, I asked this of the delegate, would there be any good out of sending this back to administration to address a couple of the concerns that were brought up today? Or have these concerns been addressed to the best of your capability, administration, in doing this, through the chair?
Okay. Ms. Bryden, go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you for the question, Councillor Nelson. As we've heard from the residents of the area and the developer, there has been a lot of consultation within the neighborhood for this development. And the developer has, I would say, gone somewhat above and beyond in terms of trying to meet the requests of the residents. And we have a little bit of a, not everybody is happy with every choice that has been made with the development, and I think that can be said for a lot of the developments that go forward. So we just tried to strike a balance between, the developer and the residents, and trying to create the best opportunity for development in our city that we think supports the neighborhood and the community overall.
Thank you for your satisfies me. Thank you for doing the work that you've done. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Nelson. I think looks like we're going to be ready to call the question. Madam Clerk, I'll start this here. Call the question.
Mr. Boykowski,
In favor?
Mr. Aston,
In favor?
Mr. Dawes,
In favor.
Mr. Hopkins,
In favor.
Mr. Cobus,
In favor.
Mr. Sontag,
In favor.
Ms. Wilson,
In favor.
Ms. York,
In favor.
Councillor Nelson,
In favor.
Councillor Findura.
In favor.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, I think that was it. Call adjournment. Mr. Austin? Okay, any opposed? And see now, that is scary. Thank you very much. Well done. Good work, everyone. Thank you for representing. Administration. Go catch some of that nice weather still. Go open up a catch basin somewhere.